Hello, everyone. A very warm welcome to Weekends with Amit. And I am your host, Krishanu. Today, we are going to talk about a subject which most of us do not want to talk about or think about. But eventually, we are still very much in the race to be where we don't want to think. Today's subject is how to maintain the quality of life in the old age. Now, this is something if I talk about me, myself personally, I seriously want to know because it is much better to be prepared than go there just like that. And today, to discuss this, we have a distinguished guest, and of course, Dr. Valentina Onisor, along with Professor Goswami. And why I was talking distinguished, there is something called leading by example. And if I may say that, touchwood, Professor Goswami leads by example in this subject about maintaining the quality of life in old age. So, right away, Professor Goswami, the ball is in your court and we are all ears.
Thank you, Krishnan. Hello, everyone. Yes, I am old and maintain a fair amount of quality in my life. So I am entitled, I guess, to talk about how to maintain. But I tell you what, actually, the uh, knowledge existed before. And the sad thing is that somehow we have lost the knowledge. It's not that we are, we are discovering something very special. Not very long ago, when I was growing up, that was like 1940s. My mother used to tell me a lot of stories, and I especially like this one. I remember in details. Just tell you the gist. A guy, mother is dying, so he says, "Oh, mother, pass me some last words of wisdom." He says, "I'll only." She says, "Only two things. First of all, make sure that you eat fish head every day. And second of all, whenever you need counsel, advice, then go to a person with three heads. Very puzzling. Fish head, fish is costly. They don't sell heads unless you buy the body. So the boy is very puzzled. He goes to another counselor, decipher the meaning. Oh, the other guy says, okay, it's very simple. If you come from an older culture, you see, when she says that eat fish head every day, you don't eat fish head or big fish. They're not edible. What is edible is fish head of small fish, like smelt. Okay, how about the other one? Where can I find a man with three heads? So haven't you seen an old man? They sit and they put their head on their knee. It looks like they have three heads. And then the guy goes away satisfied. So old men were identified as the wise men. Isn't that interesting? Old people, I should say. Wise people. Today, old people, dementia. The association is clear. Many old people do not have a quality of life. Either they suffer from some chronic disease or dementia. Chronic disease, when treated by allopathy, is repeated, repeated, repeated. Why? Because allopathy does not heal. It cures the symptoms. And of course, although doctors today know that lifestyle has something to do with the quality of life, so they do give cursory advice, but it's just an advice, no truth in it. They don't know how to improve the lifestyle or what in the lifestyle is really wrong. They will talk about don't take wine too much, Every day some research is showing. Yesterday the research was red wine is good for you. Everyone should drink a little red wine in the evening. Now the wisdom is that even one glass of wine a day will reduce your longevity, brain longevity by 7 years. Go figure. But one thing we can all agree upon, we do not any longer have any old and wise people. So what happened? What happened to human culture all over the world? Now, this is a very, very good question. And the main culprit will seem like a philosophy discussion for many of you. Remove that disbelief. Talking about worldview is just philosophy. Scientists made a major blunder in the 1960s. It is not clear still why they did it, but they declared that everything is made of matter. Materialism. It's called scientific materialism, and science done within it is called materialist science. This science declares that there are no values. Life is going to be just what it is. We are born, the wisdom story goes, the ultimate wisdom in one sentence, we are born, we suffer, we die. Today, materialist science says, well, look, we don't have to suffer. Make money, entertain yourself, push your suffering under the rug. Okay, the suffering will come to you in your old age. That's the problem. In the olden days, at least people understood that, well, there is suffering. And some people took ahead of time some precaution. Okay, what can I do to avoid suffering? And that is what led ultimately wisdom with old age. When we are young, we don't think about these things. We are healthy. But when we hit the middle age, all of a sudden, this realization comes that I am wasting my life. Where is the meaning of my life? What's the purpose of my life? And there is a big opportunity of going for meaning and purpose. That's what older people do. They realize that what I have done so far was actually full of a lot of suffering. It was not really happy. It was full of some pleasureful interludes, but mainly it was just suffering. Okay, I eat too much and then I suffer. I have sex with my wife, but then we fight. There's no happiness there, just pleasure, a little bit. How much can you eat during a day? How much sex can you have during a day? Not much. The work is always been very dull for people, whether it's agriculture or it is in a factory or it is in your desk, it doesn't matter. It's always working for somebody else. But a few people, quite a lot of people actually, realize that when we hit the middle age, there is this midlife transition that comes like a ton of bricks. It's a reminder that, look, you really have not lived a very happy life. You don't know what happiness is. Face up to it. Make this suffering a springboard, a motivation for finding happiness, which is change yourself, transform yourself, take care of yourself, take care of your internal mind, purpose, meaning. Those things bring the mental health. Instead of all the outgoing activities, pleasure, and mostly boring stuff, learn to enjoy your inside, turn inwards. And people did, and many people became wise. Today we have information processing. Today we are constantly told that there is nothing that you can change. You are what you are. You are stuck with human conditions, which means 85% negativity in life, very little positivity because brain is built that way. There's nothing in the body to look at except we have some pleasure organs. That's all there is to body. No knowledge that heart gives us love. No knowledge that we can experience self-worth in our navel chakra, which will bring the inspiration to get some quality of life. So, what is giving us this new knowledge? The good news is that we now have a science for it. Quantum physics shows that no, materialism is wrong. Experimental data shows that materialist science is impossible to justify. Matter cannot have instant communication with each other. Matter always has to communicate with signals, but living beings can communicate without signals, and even matter at the elementary level, elementary particles, they also can communicate. But how do they communicate without signals? What mediates the interaction? For anybody, human beings, human with plants or elementary particles, must have something that is mediating, and that mediator is actually consciousness. Us. Consciousness not at individual level, consciousness that is spiritual traditions call cosmic consciousness. Just this awareness that we have cosmic consciousness, that is the ground of being, and mind and matter are possibilities for consciousness to choose from, is the basic message of quantum physics. Once we realize this, then it's easy. We have to cultivate mind in the later half of the life. In the first half, we can make do with how mind is already mapped in the body, in the matter, and going with it is okay. But starting with midlife, if we don't do it, quality of life will be seriously compromised. Okay, you got the gist? This is just a background. Now our expert, Valentina Onisor, will expand on the detail, how to really establish that quality of life, how to avoid chronic disease, how to avoid Alzheimer, all this dementia stuff. Instead, how to really enjoy the fruit of meaning and purpose, exploring and flowering in your life. Valentina?
Hello, hello everybody. And interesting enough, I had a lot of first-hand experience with older people, which, for example, of course, Amit is by far the youngest of the people that I have ever met, even if he's 85. But as I know him in the last many years, he's becoming younger and younger, and his insights and all his latest work is so much brighter and full of life and meaning than it was before. It's a fact. And um, also my parents, of course, like they reached very old age, over 83 years old, and I had to watch them and their evolution and involution, and eventually also processes like getting very sick and then eventually healing, even from a cancer, killing the physical problem, but then eventually seeing how obviously the other bodies could not get this kind of healing, and eventually life has ended in this body for my father last year. So it was a very interesting case for me also as a physician to watch all this process very carefully. And also I noticed, of course, in myself and in my patients, a lot of processes to know enough that it's by far not just about what you're eating, and it's many things that are left aside in the mainstream practice of allopathic medicine, of course. And yeah, of course, there's this proverb that in my country, that a country who doesn't has old people should buy some, because we were in the past really expecting from old people to be wise. But as Amit mentioned, nowadays it's all this Alzheimer disease and other chronic conditions have become the good friends of old people, replacing all that expected wisdom. And the rate of Alzheimer, especially, and the death to Alzheimer, it has increased huge, like almost 150% in the last 20 years. And this should be a warning to humanity, because we, of course, due to so much information processing, we don't process meaning much anymore. Of course, if we are caught in all this vicious circle of fear and anxiety that exists now even more, and you're just surviving instead of living, of course, there's no meaning there. And also, not to speak about memory, being very much individualistic and defensive in our emotional relationships also. This is causing that immune system inflammation, and contributes to that plague on memory neurons, which is consisting of amyloid beta protein deposits, for those who know about these things. But that increasingly puts the memories out of reach of conscious recall, and eventually is leading to dementia that we call Alzheimer's disease. And so again, instead of growing older and wiser, people grow older and demented. So how is this way to end life, and what is the reason people are doing it, causing this, of course, burden eventually on others? But the answer is that there is a huge lack of good science of health and this system of health education that teaches people how to live. So again, no matter where we are going, because there's a lot of knowledge that exists already, but the main thing that I consider that is lacking nowadays is again and again education. And okay, so about the subject, what will make people grow older and wiser? um, so what can guarantee that there will be a quality of life, and that with dignity, and especially if possible, be conscious in those very, very special moments of death. So imagine if you know about various traditions who describe of this importance of that moment when one is dying, yeah, of a natural death. So how and of course, if you're aware also about the process of reincarnation, and that moment is really one of, it's a very, very important moment. There are some traditions where people really prepare all their life for that moment, to make this conscious leap even. uh, but what happens when somebody is in this kind of state, like kind of all your life, or you were sleeping, yeah, and just depending on machines and technology, and lacking happiness and love and all that, of course, meaning. So how different that kind of end of life is, and really we should ask ourselves and start acting while we still can. Yeah, because it's very different when you start engaging in education transformation when you are around 40, 50. More difficult when you start doing it later, because there are many factors that you need to engage, especially using the vital body. Yeah. So there are, of course, there are two outcomes related, which is the quality of life and longevity. Everybody wants to live longer and longer and longer, but even if it's not much quality of life there, and we still want to just get more years of life, but many times these years of life don't have much essence in them, but we still want them, right? And quality of life, purpose, and meaning, of course, you don't see these kind of discussions in materialistic science. Uh, but even in allopathy, actually, at least even allopathic doctor, they know that this kind of stuff, yeah, they call it. So it will bring at least the quality of life in elder life, And there are certain studies, and they are accepted, uh, for example, if you speak about retirement, Amit was mentioning last days, yeah, what? I'm retired. And actually, he's not retired at all. He's working now so much more than all his life, and so many things come to fruition now. So yes, I would like to have this kind of retirement, because imagine even that moment when somebody is retired, you just go through such a crisis that many people they can even die immediately after that. In some countries, this retirement is no longer compulsory, and that's a good thing. Um, Now, what can we do to help elderly care with all the theories of quantum science? Of course, again, we are reformulating gerontology, elderly care into what we call quantum gerontology. Right? And the task of quantum gerontology are manifold, actually. Of course, the idea is to help people grow old and wise, starting with this midlife transition, through a special program that involves, of course, the embodiment of the archetypes via quantum science of manifestation and creativity at both mental and vital level. So we call it quantum yoga of soul making. Then another point would be to help people to recognize the call of what is called holotropy and choose not to go through this midlife transition and instead revert back to the same old with the reframing of their past and emphasize the positive. Right, so there are other many points that we discuss in our courses, and we in what way are the health practices different for older people than just for the other people? There are many points here, and we study about what the biological evolution is giving us, the set of universal physiological functions that we are born with, and also these mechanisms that dictate the longevity and aging. There's a lot to check about this. But just keep in mind that aging, as conventional researchers have argued, involves the normal, so-called normal reduction of the functions of the organs at the various chakras. Now here you need to study about science of the chakras and the liturgical fields. And in quantum science, the physiology is not something that is fixed. And if a certain chakra can be opened, the organs of the chakra can behave in a more quantum coherent way. And this may reduce or even eliminate a certain deterioration. And again, I have even Amit in front of you as an example with some physiological problems that he really had, and now he doesn't have them anymore. And so again, imagine. Of course, there are lots of theories of aging. I'm not going to go into that, but if you get a chance to also study Ayurveda, of course, an Ayurvedic doctor will immediately blame it on Vayu, Vata dosha, actually, Vata dosha. And even on that, so there's an upcoming book which includes greatly this chapter and also how quantum science is this Ayurveda and all these doshas. It's very good and suggesting to all doctors to try to understand. It's a lot to talk about this. Maybe we'll have a whole chapter only about doshas. Of course, we need to take care of the elimination systems as well. And we discuss how this affects all the other systems, the metabolism, the visceral fat, of course, the heart and the other organs. I mentioned about the vital body and that it's easier to, more recommended also to start at when you're younger, like when you're 40, it would be ideal. Because there is an idea of using vital creativity, and you heard probably about Kundalini awakening. Now, how to discuss this so shortly, I don't know. But there is great evidence in the spiritual literature of Kundalini masters who really managed to restore great conscious control even over the midbrain organ software. And not just that, so all these doobie practices of quantum yoga, or qigong, and others are very adequate for awakening of the chakras, but also towards regeneration, and even I would say rejuvenation and regeneration. Yeah. So that's just to make you curious. I don't know how far we can still continue because there are many things what's happening anatomically, what produces the aggravation of doshas and so on, but you will have them in the book.
Yeah, so maybe we keep some suspense for the book, and some other day we can have an elaborate discussion on these doshas and the other things that you mentioned, which would be really, really helpful for all of our viewers. For today, because of paucity of time, we go back to the man who is envied worldwide for the retirement he has. So maybe you would have some last words for this chapter so that we can have a lasting memory of this episode.
Thank you, Krishna. Okay, so what can I say to end this particular webinar? Um, my experience was this. Became aware of midlife transition, this uneasiness about meaning and purpose of my life at about age 37, midlife. It started early for me. And of course, I didn't get all the message at once. I got some of the message, didn't interpret them quite right initially because I was clouded, the worldview clouding of materialist science happened to me as well. It took me a while. So by the time I settled down into doing something about it, I was like between 45 and 50. And unfortunately, until then, I did not change my lifestyle much at all. And so, guess what? In my 50s, I suffered from coronary, not heart attack, but almost a heart attack. So that I became cautious, went to the cardiologist, and they said immediate surgery. And they had to do this bypass surgery. 6 bypasses I needed. So doctor gave me 10 years. Now that woke me up. I wanted to live longer. Just when I was discovered the meaning and purpose, I didn't want to end it all. And that was such an important motivation in my life. It really, really uh, paid attention into changing the inside, what Valentina talked about. So all these things, bringing love in your life in a serious way, unconditional love, that works beautifully. So this is the thing. If you're not so lucky, what happens? If you're not so lucky, then what happens is that you pass the age of 60 and it's too late. Our body changes, actually deteriorates. You'll be surprised for quite a long time. And then the rate becomes quite constant. So the first, the body really grows very fast, and then the growth goes down by a factor of 2. And then the body roughly behaves pretty much the same for a long time. And then after 60, it loses the capacity of making any real changes. We cannot anymore start something like changing physiology, like all those quantum yoga that Valentina talked about. We cannot do that. So don't wait till 60. Do something about it between 40 and 60 is the last message I want to leave you with. That really changed my life. It will change also your life. Pay attention to meaning and purpose. Wake up love in the heart. Those are the two main things. It does change physiology, and if your physiology changes, even between 40 and 60, that is the key to live a healthy life after 60. And then you can take retirement whichever way you like. You will feel that you are retired, but are not tired. Really, you are not tired. If you are not tired, you retire from your job, but now you are free to be creative. So do other things. That's what I did. Begin a second career. Freedom not to enjoy with more entertainment, more of the same, but really go for the new, go for the adventure. That's really the key. And if you are into meaning and purpose, Valentin already told you this, you never will have dementia. Instead, you will have a very happy life. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was really wonderful to hear from both of you. And I have taken away quite a few pieces of information which are very useful. And particularly, I like the fact that you said in the last that we are not tired. That makes the whole purpose of retire, or that gives the whole purpose of retire a whole new meaning processing, that is. So I believe some of our viewers will find this as interesting as well, and try to implement some of it. And as well, Valentina promised that a book is coming where a lot more in detail about these things will be mentioned. Stay tuned. And if you need more information about what we do, please visit www.amitgoswami.org. And if you have anything to ask, anything at all, please do not hesitate to email us at info@amitgoswami.org. We'll be delighted to reply to you. Thank you so much and see you next week.